Welcome, everybody, to Come Back to Love Radio. I'm Robin Vogel, and we are on Dream Vision 7. Welcome to our new listeners out there. Welcome to those listening each week. This is the radio show where we explore the journeys of healing, connection, and transformation in love and relationships. I'm your host, Robin Vogel. I'm a love and intimacy coach and creator of Heal Your Heart. Join me as I share stories, tools, and insights to help you rewrite your love story, whether it's about overcoming heartbreak, unraveling old patterns, or reigniting the spark in your current relationship. Together, we'll explore how love begins within and expands outward to create meaningful, fulfilling connection with yourself and with others. You can tune in to Come Back to Love every Thursday at 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Dream Vision 7 Radio. You can listen online. You can listen on the radio. You can listen on your mobile device or in your car. You can simply ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7. In each episode, I welcome incredible guests who bring their unique perspectives, insights, and expertise to help us dive into topics like self-love, healing, compassion, looking at the past and healing childhood wounds, and creating the love we desire and deserve in our lives. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you to and join with Lisa Carrillo, a longtime friend. And we are going to talk about, no doubt, some very, very interesting things. So I invite you to grab some tea, a glass of water, perhaps a notepad to take some notes, sit down, relax, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robin. It's so great seeing you.
Yeah, you too. We get to see each other. Those listening to the radio just get to hear our beautiful voices. But it's so good to be with you. It's been a little while. It's been a couple years, I think, since I've seen you in person, and you have been doing some really amazing things. And instead of reading your bio, which I sometimes do, I would be so grateful for you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Sure. So I was actually doing some tantra coaching back before this all happened, but in 2009, I was at a silent retreat and all the thoughts of a separate self ended. And then it just became clear that all there is this single benevolent unfolding. And then when those thoughts came back, what came with them was a curiosity in how to unravel suffering. And so that just kind of became a natural process that birthed my two books. And now I do some coaching with that. But my approach is very grounded, very heartful. I have a master's in chemical engineering and MBA. I'm very much in the world, but recognizing that once we know our infinite being, suffering doesn't have to be a part of our lives anymore, and natural connection and natural love is what we are.
Mm. Beautiful. Well articulated in a very succinct way. So, of course, I'm going to invite us to unpack because there's so many interesting pieces there. So, you said very gently and calmly, like, oh, I was at a retreat, and then all of a sudden I had this awareness. Can you say more about what happened for you in that experience where you suddenly saw what maybe some would say, or I would say, is the truth of the universe?
Yes. So I had been doing meditating and I went to the retreat hoping to get enlightened. And then I realized that I wasn't fully enjoying the retreat because I was hoping for something. And the moment I saw that, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't waste this retreat. So all the hopes lit away, dropped away, and all I was is just going to enjoy myself. And the next morning when I woke up, it was like there was this stillness in my mind, and I could see all the old habits. And the old habits would have, and I wasn't even aware of doing this in the past, it would have tried to anticipate every next move I was going to make, like what I was going to have for breakfast, but it would anticipate like 20 different versions because my mind never knew what I was going to do. The choice, the movement comes from so much deeper inside. And so in an effort to try to pretend like I was in charge of my life, I didn't realize this, but I was making like these 20 different pathways. And then when the choice or the movement came through, all the thoughts would solidify around that particular one, and I would feel like I was in control. So when I saw there was no controller in this local mind, I just saw this one single movement, like a natural choreography, everything just being danced together and apart with just this perfect harmony. And then we, with our head, add on all these stories about why I'm going closer and why I'm going apart from this person or that person. And the stories are just arbitrary, really. And they are the things that cause us to suffer because we think certain things should be. So once all that was gone, it's just this simple, free love, wholeness, and everybody already complete and whole. Nothing needed, nothing missing, and that fullness, that naturalness. Like when I got into a car, I was wondering, well, can I drive? Because like my mind wasn't working the same as it used to work. There
Right.
was no choosing. It was just kind of all happening. But it turned out I could still drive. It was amazing. And then about 3 weeks later, the thoughts came back that made me feel like I was separate, made me feel like I was an independent mover, but I could see they weren't true thoughts. So all this curiosity came to understand, well, how do they make the illusion of a separate person and of vulnerability and of suffering? And then with that understanding came the tools to unravel them.
Oh, wow. So you had to touch back in to your prior self. And it
Yes,
seems like that was an invitation to get the next piece, which was the tools.
exactly.
Wow. So you're one of those people who just had like a spontaneous, actually, you asked for it. You said, I want to get enlightened on this retreat.
That's
That's
true.
that's so great. People forget that asking and receiving is like a real thing. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, you might not get the exact form that you ask for, but we certainly can ask, right? Ask and receive.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. So, okay, it was spontaneous, but you did ask, still fairly spontaneous. Then it started to creep back in, but you could see, and I've had that experience too, where like my mind wants to try on or latch on to something that it's used to, but I can just feel like it has no validity and no relevance to the to whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. It has no energy to it. It's like
Yes, it's fizzling.
yeah, it's like a false bubble or something,
Yeah.
not attached to anything. And okay, wow. So I'll just interject a little story of something that I experienced that I had before we get into talking more about the tools, because I'm sure everybody's on the edge of their seats wondering, okay, like, how do I stop, suffering? And so we'll look at that in a moment. But what I'm reminded of is I call it a revelatory moment. Well, it was more than one moment, but I was on the phone with a therapist, coach person that I was working with, and we were doing his modality, such actually an incredible human who pioneered a lot of the work in energetics and healing, Canadian man, who's since passed. And we were working and doing our usual thing, and I was doing my tapping and, working through whatever. And then all of a sudden, very spontaneously, I had this experience that is a little bit indescribable. The only words I have for it is like this liquid feeling of love. It was this intense love feeling, like I was bathing in it. And my mother was on one side, my father was on the other side, both of them on the other side at this point, had already passed. But both of them were there, mother left, father right. And the message that came to me, well, the information that I was getting was how much they loved me and how much love there is. And it's that experience had me feeling that I had no idea what love actually was. Because anything else that I thought was love or that I named as love or that I made as a reference point for love felt nothing at all like what I experienced with the two of them in that moment. And it went on for a while, and I was like weeping, and I was saying over and over again, like, I had no idea, I had no idea. And I just kept repeating those words. And Daniel's on the phone. He's like, what's happening? You know? And he just like, let it all obviously unravel. And we had the end of the session, and I was teaching that night, and I also was like, I don't know, what can I do? How can I do this? And and I did it, and I actually needed to get back into my body because I definitely had, gone someplace else. But anyway, I'm just sharing that I feel like I'm still sorting out. I mean, you can't, what I feel about that experience is it was like a huge gift of information that I didn't have before. And if I stayed in that space, I definitely couldn't be functioning in the world because it was like being inside this like gooey, yummy, liquidy love that one would just stay right there. There's no reason to do anything else really. So I don't know. I mean, I'm open to any thoughts you have about that experience or anything that comes up for you, but yeah, it was really, really powerful.
That sounds that it's it's discovering what we already are that we didn't know. And it's interesting how we have a habit of blocking ourselves off from that aspect of what we are. And we put conditions on things, but I mean, now you know it. And whether or not you always feel it, you know it.
Right,
And it's kind of like your heart is beating, even if you aren't listening to it at this moment, you just live your life knowing your heart is beating.
right,
And now you know this love as the truth of reality.
right, right. Ooh, have the chills. Yeah, yeah, very true. Wow. Yeah, interesting. Love to hear from any listeners who have had similar experiences. So you had this awakening experience, not even an awakened moment, but really a shift in your reality, really. And then a touch back in, and then a download of tools. And then you wrote some books. So, yeah. So, what can you share about any of the tools that people can use that are, brand new, really, or wondering, like, well, how can I understand, the universe and our infinite selves better?
Oh, yeah.
Do, yeah.
So, a foundation for the tools is first just a couple reorientations. And the first is, I had before defined my life according to what I wanted. That if something felt painful or if something felt good, it was all defined by, was it something I wanted? Did it make me feel comfortable?
Mm,
And what I realized is that was too small a box. It put me into this black and white, yes, I'm getting what I want. No, I'm not getting what I want. And this is living as the full infinite being that we are doesn't fit in any box. It's not about getting this preset idea. It's about discovery. So what I feel like now, life is much more a flow of mystery. It's a discovery. Oh wow, yes, now how does this work out for good? Oh, how is this helping me right now? So there's this welcoming and an openness instead of an evaluation.
mm,
So I have a model in my book where I have two squares, whether we're getting what we want or whether we're not getting what we want. And it's still a square. In the center of that is this mystery, which is a bit nebulous. But once we recognize that there's a benevolence that got us to this point, then okay, well, if the benevolence got me this far, maybe it's going to be good enough for the next moment and the next moment. And I can relax those expectations and move into mystery and discovery.
so, again, so many things to unpack there. I want to start with the end piece, which is there's a benevolence that got me here, because I think that also challenges people's beliefs about their lives. Like, hey, I was abused as a child, or I lost my family or my father when I was young, and how how is that benevolent?
Yes, that's a really good question. Um, so it's a individual discovery. Like there is no principle. It's only a discovery of practical looking.
Mm,
And I can say that I made a list of every single bad thing that happened to me in my life
mm,
and really looked to see if that hadn't happened and all the strength I discovered from that, all the skills I discovered from that, all the compassion I discovered from that, if that event went away and all that learning went with it, would I actually prefer that?
mm,
And in each thing that looked negative, I actually had to admit, no, really, ultimately, the strength I got from it, the understanding I got from it, the compassion I got from it, always turned out to be worth it.
mm,
And if if there's still something that looks negative, we will live our life trying to avoid something. As long as there's something in our past we think could have been better, should have been better, we will have to live our life a little bit cautious because we don't want to repeat. So I feel like this is one of the most important things to do, and there's no timetable for it.
mm,
If there's still something that feels negative, feels like it was a avoidable, shouldn't have happened, hurt, then I would just hold it gently, with my heart and just ask for the wisdom to see, was there any benevolence in that situation? I mean, there
mm.
was one period where I would put my sorrow in a little imaginary box, put it under my bed, and then every day take it out, cry, journal, just really feel into everything that felt hurt, and then put it back under my bed. And I just did this for weeks.
Oh,
And, it really got me in touch with all the beliefs I had about myself that had come out of those situations. And once those beliefs were gone, the situations looked totally different.
mm,
I thought I should be in a better career. I thought I should be expressing my talents more. I thought I should be in a better relationship, all those things. And once I didn't have those beliefs anymore, it was like, oh, wow. So there is actually a really good life that I'm living. And that event helped me have the wisdom to get me to this life that is now giving me the wisdom to move on in the full creativity that I'm developing into.
wow. So many important things there. I love, first of all, the practice of putting the hurts and sorrows into a box under the bed. It's like this contained space, right? Take it out when you're ready to really look at it. That's just helpful inside, internally, I think, I feel. And yeah, and then the other piece around, oh my gosh, so many
Yeah,
things we want to
holding
hit
it
at the same
gently.
time. Well, holding
Yeah.
it gently for sure. Yes, yes, and gaining the insight and really being able to look at what happened in the past with a different light and a different perspective, right? So that you
Yes.
can start to see that there is benevolence.
Right.
Uh, that's one
Right.
of those
And
things.
one of the things that I started to discover is that almost every time that I felt like I was being hurt, it was my idea about myself that was being hurt. It wasn't me. I am this vibrant, living, changing, expressive being. And if somebody, whatever, thinks anything about me or does something to my body, they haven't touched that inner being. All they've done is maybe for a moment made me feel I maybe feel stupid or I feel disvalued or I feel, and all of those things, those are just momentary opinions. They're, they're a label that can come off the moment I stop having that thought. The moment another thought comes, then that one's gone.
Right.
There's nothing permanent about it. Somebody else comes and says the opposite thing, and now it's gone. So it really didn't go anywhere within me. It really is very much on the surface. And I want to know, where am I taking on beliefs that don't really fit? So anytime I feel interior pain, it's like, oh, aha, I've taken on a belief that doesn't fit. Let me find it so I can challenge it.
Mm,
So I want to feel the pain because I want to know, oh, yeah, I was attached to that. And I want to know, oh, yeah, I don't have to be attached to that. I
right.
don't need anybody to think I decorate my home well. They could come in and say whatever they want about my home. I don't need their opinion.
Right.
They can say whatever they want about my clothes. I don't need their opinion. They can say whatever they want about my skill. I don't need anybody's opinion. I am what I am, what I am. And I
Mhm.
don't have an attachment that it has to look good because we are puzzle pieces,
Mm,
which a puzzle piece, it fits because it has parts that go out and parts that go in.
mm,
So there's going to be times when I'm the strong, competent one, and there's going to be times when I'm the needy one. And I don't get to pick when those happen, but I really like the fact that I get to have all the experiences. So if I do a mistake and somebody else has to teach me, wonderful, I get to be the receptive one. If somebody else isn't pulling their weight and I have to overcompensate for them, wonderful, I get to be the giving one.
amazing. So beautiful. It reminds me of a practice. Before we take a commercial break, I'll just say it briefly. It reminds me of a practice that I learned in Access Consciousness, which is similar to what you just said, which is just noticing things as an interesting point of view. And, of course, that practice comes from, it comes from everywhere. It doesn't necessarily come from that place. But being in that neutral place of recognizing, oh, that person thinks that my living room looks like crap. Okay, whatever, you know. And you gave some good examples of like external thoughts that people might have. And also you gave examples which I want to highlight are the internal thoughts because we can do the same thing with ourselves, right? Over the weekend, I was leading a retreat, and this man during the retreat mentioned that he noticed that when he looked in the mirror, he was like, "Oh, you don't look so good. You're not very attractive." And he was witnessing these thoughts that I think he acknowledged that he has often, but in that moment, he was really aware of them. So he was able to say, like, that's interesting. You know, that part thinks I'm not very attractive. Or in my words, would be like, oh, that's an interesting point of view that I have that point of view. Okay, move on to the next point of view and just holding it lightly and being a witness and observing because the mind does such crazy things. The mind is like
Yes.
so bizarre. And just to be able to bear witness to what the mind does instead of, jumping on that train, going down that rabbit hole with that thought. And then we're in a totally different place of disconnect from our true selves, from our true essence. And then we're in suffering, right? Like,
Right.
then we're in suffering. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Come Back to Love Radio. We are here with Lisa Carrillo having an amazing conversation about actually the true essence of who we are, our infinite selves, and the the impact that has on our lives when we recognize that truth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's big.
And
Go ahead. Yeah.
one of the tools that I found, just to kind of pick up where we left off,
Yeah.
one of the tools that really surprised me is that we tend to actually have a happiness set point. So if something happens that's really good, just watch. And I was shocked, but this actually was happening. within the next 24 hours, I would have something else that would bring me down. And it didn't have to be an actual event. It could be something that happens every day, but on that day, it irritated me. And so I realized, yes, there is like whatever you could say, 80% of the time that I allow myself to be happy. And it took something deliberate to say, well, what if I raise it to 85%? So, and again, it just seemed ridiculous. Could that be true? But I noticed, okay, let's see if when that moment comes that I'm starting to get irritated or upset or hurt, just pause, catch it early, pause and say, can I stretch myself to keep the happiness, the joy going, the self-love going for another 2 minutes and then another 5 minutes? And wow, yes, it would feel like this, a lot of energy moving in my body. I wanted to find something wrong. And then after practice, I'd have to use my body to get the energy out or take some time to look in the mirror and say, you're doing great, you're doing great, whatever it took. Then it was like, oh yeah, now I can get to the 85%. And more that happens. And it's amazing that, we have this conditioning that needs to assert some amount of separation, basically. The moment we decide something is not right about us or about the world or about another person, we're creating a sense of separation.
Mm,
And our ego relies on a certain percentage of the time, 15% in a day, for example, that we do that. And when we decrease it, we'll have all these critical thoughts like, oh, look at you're just superficial, whatever, or well, you aren't discerning enough because you're saying everything's good or whatever. There will be the counterpart, but it just takes a new perspective that we're actually changing our boundary in that area to start to relax and start to receive the goodness that is actually always around us.
mm. Yes, amazing. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's a great exercise, first of all, that we have this happiness set point. And I'm tuning into myself as I'm listening to you, and I hope my our listeners are as well. Like, what's my happiness set point? And what I'm getting for myself is 70% in this moment. And of course, in the next moment, it could be something else. And then I'm asking myself, well, okay, why 70%? Why not 99%? Or 100% for
Right.
that matter.
Yeah.
Right. But okay, leave a little 1% there for my ego. But when I ask myself that question, first of all, it goes up right away just in asking the question because there's more spaciousness in my awareness for more as soon as I just open myself up to it. So, okay, now it's feeling like 75%. And still, um, what it brings me back to is what I witnessed. Like, I had a mother who was very miserable, depressed, anxious, died when she was 37 years old, didn't want to be here. I feel clear that she made a choice that this was not, this was the lifetime. It was going to be very short for her and she was going to go. And and that's a perspective that has come to me, of course, over many years of looking at, why did this hardship, quote unquote, happen? Um, and still, even with the perspective on the strengths and the gifts and the compassion that I have received from living with her for the 10 years that I did and being in her energy field, I can still recognize that, oh, yeah, 75% probably came maybe from her, maybe from the ancestry, the suffering that, the generations in the past experienced and felt they needed to experience, and what I feel. Um, so I guess just holding on to that 75% sort of just as a habit or a pattern, like you said. And and okay, so thank you. Now I have, some tools and some awareness to expand that into a much greater capacity. And it also reminds me of being a parent, and a lot of parents will say this. When my child was so happy and bounding across the field with an exuberance, that you could barely contain. And then what happens? They fall. They hurt themselves, they cry. And it's like, oh, it's so painful to witness the contrast. Um, and it happens often. And this is a new, piece of awareness around like, yeah. I mean, I wonder about children. Maybe you have a comment, maybe you don't, but I wonder about children because they are so exuberant and they can express 100%, 1,000% very easily. And then something happens and shifts, but they don't hold on to it. Then they're just like back up running across the field, back into their high happiness set point. Yeah.
No, but that is a perfect example because when they are pushing the boundary of what society considers is proper,
Mm.
there is just a tiny bit of something I'm sure they can feel from the outside that is saying, okay, and there's a limit. You aren't going to be able to be like that forever. Like there's the point where you have to contain yourself. And there's an energy around us where we all get trained. So, you know, as they start to feel that, it will cause this instability inside of them and they will fall. So, yeah, they're definitely reflecting that happiness set point of the world around them.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of like you're in your flow and you're in your aligned space, and then something distracts you and you fall or you stumble on your words or you sort of lose your traction. And I think, that's how I'm perceiving and understanding what you're saying. Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Huh.
And it's really become a practice for me just in everyday things to look and see what conditions am I putting on my happiness? Like, I think I would be happier if blank, like there's something going on in our bathroom. We we don't know if we thought it was a leak. Now maybe it's old mouse poop that has to be cleaned out from this place that we have to cut a hole in the wall to get to. I don't know what it is. But we've had guests, fortunately, most of them don't, but we have had guests who they can smell it when they walk into our house. And, we haven't been able to figure out exactly what it is. So we don't even know what kind of professional to ask. But, I could have, now we have this commercial space in our home. So we have a lot of people coming in. And theoretically, there's a smell. I could be impatient about this whole situation. But if I were, it would be holding on to this idea that I need people to be comfortable in my house.
Mm.
And that seems like that is a really simple thing, right? I mean, isn't that a reasonable expectation to have? People should be comfortable when they walk in my house. It turns out, no. Like that would be a condition on my happiness to say I can only be happy if people are comfortable when they walk into my house.
Mm.
Well, that is too small of a box to put happiness in. It
Mhm.
can be outrageously happy when somebody comes in and says, I can't stay here too long. It doesn't smell great in your house. It fortunately wasn't that bad. Otherwise, we'd be probably opening up the walls, I suppose.
Right.
But but yeah, the this idea that there's any condition, I need a partner who, fortunately, my first husband and I end up separating, and it was a long 6-year process, very long process of separating, with, a lot of painful parts in there. And I learned so much about relationship going through that,
Mm-hmm.
so much. And I wouldn't trade any of that. I learned so much about myself, my expectations of myself.
Mm.
So in the end, what matters more to me is that I know what truth is.
Mm.
And truth is that if there's any condition on my happiness, or if there's any way that I have a requirement for infinite being to show up, then I'm basically stabbing myself in the foot. I want to know. I want to know that, and I want life to show it to me. And pain and suffering shows me exactly where my conditions are.
Sure does. Wow. That's another great exercise that we can highlight, just inviting people to write down, I can only be happy when fill in the blank. I can only be
Right.
happy if fill in the blank, and then make that list. And that shows us where we're attached. Yeah. Mm. And that brings us also to where you started, which was this way of holding comfort as the highest and best. The best thing we can be is comfortable. And absolutely, I have felt that way, and I still have parts that feel that way. I like to be comfortable. But then we're evaluating everything in two categories, right? Like comfort, discomfort, and everything goes in the buckets, the different buckets. And yeah, that sure feels like a very, very small container of life, of how to look at life. And
Yeah.
yeah. And it also, like you said, that's the path to suffering because then if you don't have those things and you're uncomfortable, then there's suffering instead of an opportunity for greater awareness and understanding. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a big expense that came for us in December. And I mean, we could afford it. It wasn't like it was totally putting me out, but it was big and, a couple months of salary. And so then well, a month and a half of salary. So then instead of being concerned, I just went and thought, okay, let's live on the edge here and just wait and see how does the money come back in.
Mm,
Let's just and I really liked that feeling because I cultivated that in myself, that feeling of being in the unknown.
mm,
Okay, so if money is going out, money will be coming in. Let's just watch and see instead of trying to nail it down, trying to put it in a box, trying to watch just live in that unknown. And lo and behold, of course, it does come in. No problem, actually. It all came back in. No problem at all. That it's learning that feeling of being in the unknown, that is the most dynamic, that's the most alive, that's the most in tune place to live.
mm,
And anytime something comes into my life that puts me into that place, I just remind myself, isn't this the place you want to live at?
mm. Yeah, it's really powerful what you're saying because most people are really uncomfortable in that space. It reminds me of me on travel. I love spontaneity. I love especially using travel as a metaphor, I think is how I'm using it. I love travel. And I use travel as a metaphor for this piece because I don't like to make plans. And I mean, I can look at this in a couple of different ways. If I'm with people and they're making plans, I can go with the flow. I can also be irritated because I don't want to have plans. I want to be in the open space. I want to get off the plane, step on the ground, look around and say like, okay, universe, show me like what's next. Where am I supposed to go? To the right, to the left, straight. And I know that for some people that is a complete nightmare. And so don't travel with me is the lesson. And sometimes, yes, of course, we need to um, have something in place. But I am like the quintessential. In fact, I just spent all morning rearranging my travel plans. And people are like, it's so funny because travel is an interesting one. There's a lot of attachment, a lot of control. And I know I have parts that are, in there working like that as well. And it doesn't often occur to people that they can change. They'll say, like, well, I scheduled it for this date, so that's the day I need to go. And I'm coming home on this day, so that's the date I need to come back. And my reality is completely different. I make flight reservations and cancel and change them all the time. I just did it this morning for the third time for this one trip. I feel like probably I landed on what is the lightest for me and my being. for this particular trip for a retreat I'm leading in Italy in early June. And maybe not. I mean, it could be that it changes again, but I think I use it. This conversation is helping me see that I think I use it because it's very usable for me to do it that way, to like feel into what's light and heavy, to make changes, to go with the flow, to land at the Copenhagen airport, not know anything about where I'm going or what I'm doing, which I did a couple years ago. And yeah, I just love it. I love the adventure of it and the opportunity and the not being kind of boxed in, which is so limiting. I mean, who knows who I'm going to meet in that airport that I'm going to want to go to lunch with? I don't know.
That's so beautiful. Such a welcoming of the spontaneous gifts and a willingness to just enjoy whatever shows up, like no preconceived thing to compare it against. And okay, whatever, there isn't a car rental or there isn't or the weather's horrible or, whatever. Then you're in a new discovery of, okay, well, how do we deal with that? And that's such a wonderful example of how we can be in all of our life.
Mm, in all of our life, yes. I'd love to hear something about a morning ritual related to that. So you can think about this during the commercial break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Come Back to Love Radio. We are here with the fabulous Lisa Carrillo talking about, wow, just amazing things around um, awareness, waking up to our true essence, being our infinite selves, being spontaneous in the world and open to possibility rather than limiting ourselves with definitions and conclusions. Those are my words, um, that keep our world a lot smaller. I love how you've referenced that a couple of times. Like this reference point is too small of a reference point for the experience. That really helps me open up even greater um, in my own awareness and my own infinite self. We were talking about tools and what came to me was inviting, and maybe you have practices to share that you use. I think the way we start our day is so helpful, with intention and clarity. I have my own ways, and I'm curious if you would like to share any of your ways to help people start their day with the possibility of a different perspective.
Yes. You know, for me, the biggest gift that the universe has given me is the experience of getting to be Lisa. It is really, this is the gift, to get to see through Lisa's eyes, to get to experience through Lisa's body. So looking in the mirror every morning and saying, thank you that I get to be you today. Thank you for all that you're going to give me in joy. Thank you all that you're going to give me in fear. Thank you all that you're going to give me in hurt. Thank you that you are going to give me this beautiful day.
Hmm,
And it's just a reminder that all of life is precious. All of life is grace. And there'll be things to glean from every experience.
hmm,
And, eventually it turns out that the fear and the hurt are imagined. But as long as they're there, they're precious too. I'm not trying to reject any part of my humanness.
right. Wow, that's beautiful and made me cry. So it must be this is really profound and poignant. Thank you for sharing that. I invite all of our listeners to start. Let's all start our days that way from now on and see what happens. Wow. So, Lisa, you have some incredible offerings that you're sharing with community, and I hope this is an invitation to expand your community and expand the people who connect with you and the gift that you are. Can you share?
Thank you. Yes, yes. So my website is experiencingthetrueself.com and have a YouTube channel, Inquiry into Self. That's inquiry with an E. I have free meditation groups that I host 3 times a week. You can see that on my website. I have the 2 books, both on Amazon and Barnes& and Noble, An Unprincipled Life, Living from the Unknown, and Living Awake, 20 Techniques to End I Got It, I Lost It. And they're both on they're on Kindle and on Audible and paperback back.
On Audible, yay. I mean, I have the books themselves in my hand, and I like to buy a book and also listen to it on Audible both. And sometimes there's some different offerings in each. So I don't know, I've just been enjoying that as my practice with books these days. So,
Yeah.
Lisa Carrillo, they also can Google you, I'm sure, by name and find all of these resources. But making available meditations for free a couple times a week is first of all, a beautiful gift to the universe and to yourself, I know. Um, and and such an accessible way for people to get to know you and get to know more about you. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
great, Robin. It's really been a joy being with you.
Yeah, you too. Whew, I feel moved to tears. It's so precious, such a precious moment. Thank you so much for being here. And shout out to those that are listening or watching. Thank you for tuning in to Come Back to Love on Dream Vision 7 Radio. And we're on the air Thursdays live, 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And then you can find our replays on all the podcasts that you enjoy listening to and more. See you next time.